Ben Sobanski with One Stop Financial Group, speaking with Heather Huber out of Keller Williams, Grand Rapids East, servicing the Western Michigan area. Heather, we're here to talk a little bit today about some questions you had on what makes up a client's cash to close. So take it away.
For sure. Yeah, a lot of times when I'm working with especially a new home buyer, I get a lot of questions about, okay, how much is this actually going to cost me up front? They know that typically there's a down payment associated with it. But then I get a lot of questions about, okay, what is this cash to close? What does this mean? What are these closing costs? So I just want to pick your brain about that a little bit today. So could you just kind of tell us maybe what a new home buyer or just home buyer can expect in those closing costs when they get to the closing table?
Yeah, of course. So obviously the first thing that's going to make up what your out-of-pocket costs are going to be is your down payment, right? This is usually going to be the biggest chunk. You can go as low as 3%, typically 5%, FHA 3.5%. But even on VA or USDA, they have zero down loans too. But what we look at when calculating your cash to close on top of your down payment is kind of a breakdown on what we have to charge or what the lender's charging, and then your title fees, your escrows, and making sure that we're covering like any tax prorations and stuff like that.
Okay. So when you say escrows, what exactly do you mean by that? What does that include?
Yeah, of course. So when we close on the house, we're going to pay for typically a whole year's worth of homeowners insurance up front. And then we're going to take 2 months of that homeowners insurance and we're going to put it into a little account off to the side. That account will allow us to, when 1 year from now, your homeowners insurance has to renew, make sure that we have enough money to renew that policy, as well as your taxes, right? In Michigan, we typically collect taxes twice a year. And each time we collect taxes, we collect them for a full year. I know that sounds weird, but we're collecting summer taxes and winter taxes is the difference typically between your city, your state, and your county taxes, your village taxes, the way that they break down. So depending on what time of year you close, we have to make sure that from the time you make your first payment to the time your next taxes become due, we have enough money in that account to pay those taxes.
Okay. And then a lot of times I will get questions from clients about this lender is able to offer me this rate, but then this lender said something about buying down a rate or points. What does that mean? What does that mean? And how is that reflected at the closing table?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So your charges that is up to like what you're paying for an interest rate or what your lender or your broker or your bank that you're working with is charging you are covered in underneath the loan estimate in what we call box A, right? So box A will have a breakdown of fees that you are paying straight to the lender or the bank. These can be called, origination points. It'd be called an underwriting fee, it'd be called a processing fee, admin fee. I hear different lenders kind of try to break them down and make them seem like they're smaller fees. But at the end of the day, if one lender's charging you X amount of money in box A, and lender B is charging the X amount of money in box A, that's how you shop them. So whatever they call those fees, you really only want to pay attention to what the sum of those fees are underneath the origination charges. Now, right below box A, we have box B, and these are things that can kind of vary a little bit lender to lender, like the cost of your appraisal, tax certification fees, flood certification fees, but those are always going to be within a smaller percentage of each other lender to lender as well.
Okay, cool. And I think probably the biggest specific question that I get, which I know you can't give an exact answer of $4,327.32. But a lot of times I get asked, okay, well, about how much should I anticipate bringing to the closing table in addition to my down payment?
I always, in general, I take a conservative estimate to this approach. I would rather tell you it's going to be 25,000 today and it end up being 22,000 when we close, right? Than tell you it's going to be 22,000 and end up. So what I would add as a variable on top of your down payment is anywhere from 3 to 6%. And that's really going to vary based on what the tax codes are for the area you're going to buy. A huge chunk of your closing costs typically are going to come from that, adding into that escrow account. But it kind of adds to why it's important to work with an available loan officer too, because once we have you pre-approved and you're in our system, if we have a good system, you shoot us a text so we can look up those taxes and get you a much more accurate quote pretty quick.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I mean, those are pretty much the nuts and bolts of the questions I get as far as closing costs go. So thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Heather, for taking the time. It was nice talking to
Yeah,
you.
likewise. Have a good one.
You too.